Morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you joining us today. I'm Heather Braatz.
I'm Penny Ralston-Berg.
We are excited to share with you some of our micro workshop from a presentation that we did during QM research in 2022. And this is based on our article chapter in New Directions for Adult and Continuing Education from 2021, I believe.
Yes.
The pandemic was a blur.
Right.
So feel free to join via the QR code on the screen. You can also type in the short URL to join the RISE course /PowerPoint/ work group facilitation.
Yeah, it's a catch-all for everything. And so we're just going to hit some of the highlights today that you'll need to participate in the activity. But if you're interested in this, you can go to this course at any time. It will not close down and go deep dive. There are videos, there are prompting questions you can use with faculty. There's lots of good stuff in there. So feel free to use the course after the session.
Absolutely. And by show of hands, did anyone check out our webinar at QM Research on Zoom? Oh, perfect. Okay, that gives us some a little bit of time to go over this. So we're focusing on structure and interface and how that relates to quality course design. So feel free to start us off, Penny.
Sure. So when we talk about standardization, it first when people hear the word, it sounds restrictive, like we're trying to tell people what to do. But what we're actually looking at in this workshop is standardization as a support for students and structure as a support for students. And so looking at different levels of standards and different things you can do within a course or across many courses within a program, right? So if students have a more consistent learning experience, then they don't have that learning curve at the beginning of every class. So that's our lens for today in terms of standardization. It's not telling people what to do, but finding ways to give support.
So who here works at an institution where from course to course, the interface is a little bit different? Looks like at least half. So that is something that we've thought about a lot. We've done some research on and kind of thought about how can we make the student experience a little bit less of a cognitive load as they move from course to course within a program or within a learning experience, a holistic learning experience. So there's a couple of different prompts on the screen, a lot of different ways to think about how can we reimagine the learner experience so it's no longer as frustrating as when, if you were to go to a grocery store here, and maybe it's the same brand of grocery store that you have in your hometown, you look forward to seeing a Safeway because it's been a while since you've been in this time zone. But for some reason, the produce is on the wrong side of the store. And you're like, that's not where I find bananas. It's supposed to be on the left side of the store, not the right. So we think about that in terms of how that design and how that interaction with that content can be really frustrating for some learners if they have to relearn, okay, the bananas are on the right here. That's weird. So.
Yeah. So, and another thing we're trying to do is to make the technology transparent. As you can see the outer circle, we want to create a course where students can go in, focus on learning, find what they need to find, do the activities, be successful, and not be looking for things or trying to sort things out. Because if these are educated people, they're enrolled in courses. If the system was broken and complicated and they needed to accomplish their coursework, could they figure it out? Yes, they could. They're smart people. The question is, should they have to? Right? Or can we as course designers and providers set up a system that lets them focus on instruction and not technology or figuring out where things are?
Yeah, in grad school, my program director, Simone Conceição, always talked about it should be a tool, not a barrier. I'm like, yes, right. But sometimes it's not a tool. It's not on our side all the time. So thinking about how we can make really transparent, really supportive design and how that really helps not only our learners, but faculty, instructional designers, all of our support staff, because when we look at a course, we know where to find the bananas, right?
Yeah, so, and these are just some real quickly, just some visual aids. And so if you have courses that have a completely different navigation system or content structure, then each time a student goes into a course, they have a new system to learn. And so if you can kind of standardize that and have some common elements, then it turns out more like this. They learn the system once, and then they're smooth sailing from there on. So they have less cognitive load spent on interface. And this, I'll mention too really quickly, like the amount of structure, we'll talk about a little later too, but this could be as simple as having the first 5 navigation items be the same in all the courses, or having the syllabus always be in the same location within a course. It doesn't have to be highly structured, determining every single design element. It's just little things that make a big difference if they're consistent. Which leads to the, yeah, you only have to learn the structure once. That's our goal.
We all love a good one and done, right?
Yeah.
So usually when we talk about structure, interface, and standardization, the first thing that comes up is academic freedom and the T word, which is templates.
Yeah. And so just an example of providing, not telling faculty what to do or how to teach, but providing starting points that they can use to have a basic structure to put their instruction into. Right. So you'll notice in this example of this course map, this is a structure of a course. And you might, in the activity, you might actually create something like this today. And so you'll see that the syllabus is above introductions, is above modules. And so there's a common structure there. Within each module, the items appear in a certain order. Within a course overview page, those items appear in a certain order, provides consistency for the student. But what you'll notice is that it doesn't say you have to have a discussion here, or you have to have a paper here, or your content must be 3 pages long. That's not part of this template, right? This is a basic structure that will provide consistency to support students.
Yeah, when we were developing very rapidly an online course for Worsham College of Mortuary Science, we had about 6 months lead time before we rolled out the first semester. And then once that first semester was out and enrolled in, we only had about 6 months to roll out the next semester. Yeah. So the course maps that we use that were based on QM, the templates that Penny designed for us to make sure that all of our courses had, those strong bones, that strong structure, really helped us to rapidly design and roll out. Instead of the instructors having to think about what is this going to look like? Where am I going to put the content? How am I going to build the course? It was just focusing on what do you need the learner to know when they exit? What do they need to be? What do they need to do to be successful? So it was really helpful for us to have that strong structural template in that rapid design process and delivery.
And when you're thinking about standards and templates and different things, you can do it at all different levels. So in our case with Heather and I, we did have multiple courses in a program. And so there were program level templates, things that every course should include. But you can also do them within a course, just so you're using the naming conventions consistently and that kind of thing within a module, even down to specific design sequences, page structure, right, for accessibility if you're using headers and spacing and different ways that you have page structure. And then even items within a page, you may have standard language and instructions of how to do things, how to use the tool in the LMS that you're using again and again. So those may be consistent too.
So who here has seen a discussion prompt or instructions for a discussion where one instructor might have a very thorough, beautifully thought out, this is exactly what you need to do in 6 steps. And then the other discussion board just says, tell us about what you think about Shakespeare. Have fun with it, make it your own. So it can be it can be a little bit daunting as a learner to have super structured instructions in one assignment and then another assessment where it's so vague that you're like, I don't know where to start. So we wanted to make sure that we had at least some commonalities in terms of page structure, that they could look at it and just visually see, okay, this looks like what I'm used to seeing when I look at a assessment or a discussion board.
Yeah. And these are all in here, as I said at the beginning, you have access to this after the session, so you can go in and dive into those if you'd like. So we should probably go to the next section.
We'll go straight to the design
Yeah,
thinking group
yeah,
work.
yeah.
So again, as we mentioned at the beginning of this micro workshop, we'll be asking you to do a little bit of design thinking to apply the ideas of, some standards, some commonalities in course structure and interface. We have a couple of different prompts, and we'll ask you to pair off either with people in your row, or if you're in a sparse row, you might want to grab someone from the row behind you. In terms of different types of course design, so we have a couple of different scenarios that might apply to you, or you might be bringing your own type of challenge to this as a clinic. The first one would be a project-based course, such as a Universal Design for Learning project-based psychology course, where you're designing a course that involves a lot of project-based assessments, or one big project at the end of the semester or quarter that spans the entire term. Second idea would be a course with high student agency or high learner-led course objectives. So if you're designing a course where the students must create and deliver a learning experience that is shared with other students, how are they being supported, and how are you structuring that so they know exactly what the expectations are? Another one would be a course with high student agency. Another, oh, that's not the one. I copy and pasted wrong.
Oh,
I'm gonna skip to number 4 while we pull up the last one from the Google Drive.
okay.
A course with high student agency. And the third one is a self-directed learning course, where you are designing a course where the students create objectives, goals, and act on them to show evidence of their learning. And then the last one is a real world course challenge that you can take to clinic. So with your folks in the aisle, if you have a course design challenge that you personally have been working on, you want to workshop with the group, feel free to do so. Now on this RISE course, you'll see a couple of links that you can get to the different slides for in-person. We'll recommend that if you're in the room, use the go to in-person link to get to the slides. It might be helpful just for time and brevity that one person nominate themselves as the faculty member, SME. So you can take that place, do a little bit acting and role play, and think about how you're encouraging your learners to be successful. Maybe a couple of you want to take the role of students, where you'll be acting out if you're a highly motivated student, you understand the assignment and you read the syllabus. Or what if you're a less than motivated student that might not really like reading a lot? So how would you be supported or unsupported by course structure? And then the rest of the people in the small groups talk about, if you are the instructional designer working with this faculty member or subject matter expert, how are you making an interface and a structured course that is meaningful and not overwhelming? How will we get the students to find the bananas? So there's some different design thinking prompts on here, and we will welcome you to go to that in-person group slide deck. Feel free to claim one of the slides as your own and start working from your device. If you don't have a device that's connecting well to the internet, you are more than welcome to sketch it out on a notepad.
Yep.
And really, we're just kind of thinking about how can we apply a little bit of structural design thinking to make our courses very supportive.
Can you put it back on the prompts slide? Yeah. So we'll leave the prompts up so you can see those. And as Heather said, if you want to sketch it on paper or claim a slide and do it that way, we just want to give you a chance to think about structure. Sketch something out.
If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah, I got that.
So start the course.
Okay.
One that's not really used. Oh, and so just keep going to the slides. So this is like.
Okay, for the online people, just choose one of the scenarios and go in and start adding. You can just select a group and enter in the information in the scenario you're looking for.
5 minutes left for our group work. Again, 5 minutes left for group work.
Chatty. Yeah. Some people are like, some people are a little of, but we've got, I think. 2 minutes? How many minutes? How many more minutes do you guys have? "60 seconds."
All righty, welcome back from our group breakouts. I hope that everyone found that productive. It felt very spirited and productive, and I think a lot of people just made some new best friends, right?
Everybody's friends now? All right.
So I see we have a lot of some
Yeah.
people are doing it in Google, some people are doing it on scratch paper, some people have a really cool whiteboard feature that they're using.
Yes.
So who would like to do a bit of show and tell? Anyone super proud of their work? And oh, I see Jim's got a mic for you. I know that there's 5 ladies took slide number 3.
Okay, I can use this one. Yeah.
Purple pandas on slide number 6. Any brave souls who would like to talk about what you learned in your breakouts? If not, I could just read what were you looking at here. Let me go back to 5 ladies because they were in like Flynn on that Google slide, right? So let me share real quick. 5 ladies came up with a project overview for the faculty, video by the instructor to let them know what to expect. Self-check based on the rubric. Set some prereqs with a highly motivated student. You would need a high level of peer engagement, make it worth their while to spend that time. Easily following the task, so they need very clear, transparent instructions, objectives, and expectations. And how do they self-check? How do they reflect on what they've done and maybe look at that rubric and say, I'm going to get an A on this. For the instructional designer, overview and chunking out of what they're going to learn, the different objectives, varied and concise learning and instructional materials. I love that. Not just a PDF of a PowerPoint and say, there you go, and organize it by weekly modules. Oh, my heart. Yes.
Yeah.
None of these 3 or 4 week modules followed by a 5-day module. I'm like, that's not how long a week is.
And a great structure with a video overview from the instructor at the start, really getting that presence into the module. So great first item.
Yeah, it really helps them, let them know that they care, right? You've done the assignment, you understand the assignment, right? Going over to our Zoom attendees, we have group Penguins. They took slide number 4, very proactive. So they're thinking about a scenario where there's a one large group project that spans the entire course with a team. Oh, I've been there. So yeah, so it looks like there's a different objectives and different breakdowns of milestones, deliverables that are interspersed equidistantly, scaffolding progressively throughout the course. Deliverables should include course announcement reminders and checklists from the instructor. Love me a good checklist. All deliverables would be designed with transparent assignment design objectives, how it's related to the objectives so they can bring it home and tie it together. Different directions and criteria with descriptors or a rubric. All courses with the same group guidelines. Love that. So that helps support them with group technologies and best practices and collaborating in a group. All course instructors with group projects on board, not for just assigning, but guiding group work. Yes. Faculty training and collaborative team-based learning. All courses with mid-project review, peer review at the end of the project peer review. Same rubric for peer review. All courses with clearly defined rubrics that explain the basis for grade points or percentages, and similar visual styles for queuing and graphic organizers for the buildup of deliverables to the final deliverable. Oh, love those kind of milestones.
Yeah. And shout out for the mid-project peer review and the end of project peer review, because that's your RSI, your regular and substantive interaction that we're all trying to build into courses, giving them regular feedback before they're submitting it for the grade. Those are great components.
Anyone from Team Purple Pandas want to share? We've got some handheld mics. Don't be shy. You worked hard this morning. So Team Purple Panda was looking at a K-12 virtual learning project-based scenario with K-12 administrators, design intervention using virtual learning, different course structures to think about, outcomes, assessments, presentation templates, smaller assessments, the components of the project, some course content, different examples of district data, intervention options, guest speakers. Yes, love me a good guest speaker or a movie. I'm on my feet too much. Technology options, what is most suitable for those interventions, and previous guest speakers. So maybe we're doing some recording, some editing. Love that. So the psychology UDL project We have some structure here with the homepage having an introduction, some syllabi, module, and a module overview with objectives. Watch and read all the readings and lectures on the project expectations post right there so they can find it, and the numbering system. We didn't really talk much about naming conventions, but that is in fact in the RISE course and how important it is for sanity. So 1.1 assignment, discussion, group assignment, assessment, and wrap up. Jim, how are we doing on Zoom? Awesome, awesome. Love the work, love the interaction. Everyone has shown great, motivation this morning. I know it's early or late, depending on where you're coming in from. A project-based web design scenario. Let me make that a little bit bigger. So think about project flow and structure and interface. How are we chunking that information, scaffolding their learning, and starting with the end so they can reverse engineer some good work. Some micro content, getting that instructional materials and review with time on task listed. Videos, readings, examples. Who doesn't love that when it's like, this is going to be a 5-minute read? And I'm like, thank you, Washington Post. I have 5 minutes. Then drafting that assignment with some peer feedback before submission. Feedback is through a rubric or guidelines and required comments. Sandwich method. Oh, I've never heard that. I love a sandwich. So I just learned something new today. I'm going to be thinking about that all day. Instructor feedback after peer-to-peer interaction. In each section, we need some learning objectives for the outcomes of the section. This is great stuff.
Yeah. And especially how they thought about the learner path, how the learner would approach the material, what they would get in what sequence, helping them along through the lesson. Yeah.
Penny, do you want to take Team Falcons?
Sure. Team Falcon, personal wellness. So in this one, we noticed that they have starting with an introduction and then core concepts. They have some topics in here, defining wellness, aging and wellness, and then setting goals for the course. So I assume if they're setting goals for the course, this is one of those courses that's open where they have a lot of agency and students are actually coming up with their own goals. And so, but in doing so, they need direction on defining objectives and outcomes, strategies, goals, self-monitoring, social support, and that kind of thing. So yeah, if they are setting their own goals, what are you trying to achieve? What is your client trying to achieve? And the peer review and final project toward the end. So they've actually lined everything up to help people be successful in the final project.
I want to make sure we're hitting up all these. I think that's it for the ones. Anyone who have a alternate format that they want to share on, whether it's scratch paper, a whiteboard. I saw a lot of people with cool tablets doing some fun touchscreen stuff.
Even if you had just a very exciting discussion about something structure-based that you'd like to share.
Yes. Success. Show and tell worked.
So I am more of an instructional designer than I never, have taught. I've taught faculty how to use, Canvas and how to set up their courses where it's more accessible and more easier to navigate for the students. But one of the things that I like to tell our faculty is when they're designing their courses is give the students fewer things to click on. So that way they're not running all over the place. And so when we design the courses, I think it's really important that we think about what is the easiest way for our students to get through this. And I always tell my faculty, when you're done setting up your course, always go through the student view, because you want to be the student in your course to be able to see how easy and effective it is to go through your course. And so we set up a template where it's really easy. But one of the things that I'm trying to motivate my faculty to do is get rid of assignments, discussions, and quizzes in your navigation menu. That should all be within your module. So all of our students have an easy way to get to those things, and they have instruction on what they're supposed to do with those items. So that's how I was thinking about our course design, and that would apply to any kind of course.
I love that, Miriam. I see some hands going up.
Short menu is good, but the research shows that people can remember 7 things, give or take 2.
Yeah.
So if you have a menu with 10 or 12 items, you're not helping anyone.
There's some hands going up in the back as well. And you maybe can't, your LMS can remove that to-do list. So they're actually on the modules page, just not going directly to that assignment.
So our group here, we chose, we were looking at the project-based selection here, and we were one of the groups that had an amazing discussion. It didn't get to the slide piece, part of which was us talking about making sure that our students had access to all sorts of supports in the journey to complete their project. And everyone kind of shared that in their campuses, students often aren't privy to the vast amount of resources that are available, like writing centers and those sorts of things. And so in an effort to break down those barriers even further, being sure that we have links to those sorts of resources so the students are aware of the breadth of opportunity that is there for them and supports.
Brilliant. Absolutely. How many people have an online ProQuest library or something like that that nobody clicks on but me? Jim, I see a couple hands in the back. Oh. Too many Oprahs in the kitchen.
I just wanted to share that depending upon your LMS, don't get caught into the belief that if you don't have assessments pulled out in their separate piece, you're going to have all your problems fixed, because we have all of our assessments within the module. So again, all the wraparounds there, students found the back door. And so just be aware that, again, your LMS, you might think, oh, they're all there, all the wraparounds there, they'll flow through it perfectly. They find a back door. And then they go right to the assessments. And then faculty go, why are they doing this if they haven't touched the pages? And so just be aware of that.
Yeah, we always try to have in a
That's a
discussion
good
board
point.
after you've read and watched all the videos and you've clicked on the reading assignment and they're like, oh, there's a reading assignment. I'm like, oh, please go to the modules page.
In our group, we also did not get to the slides just yet because we had such rich discussion. But one of the items, so we chose a project-based course. And one of the items that we really got excited about was thinking about as the learners are progressing through the course, and they're, we loved a lot of the items that were up there, such as, using modules and such. And we really got to thinking about what would be placed within inside of those modules. And one of the items that came to mind was related to engaging students in metacognition. We focus sometimes so much on the content that we forget to think about these are human beings who are engaged in a learning experience, and how are they defining and redefining their identities as learners and identities as emergent, individuals in these spaces. One of the ones that we were talking about was, in research courses, for example, as researchers, we're expected to, be very aware of our positionality and our subjectivity, but there's no real instructional piece that gets learners thinking about that. So as we're structuring our courses, and we're thinking about helping them to grow in these spaces, including items that allow them to engage in that metacognition would be incredibly helpful as they're developing their identities.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Rachel Brooks. Yes, learning is a transformative experience, and we need to get them there and let them know that it's something that you should be changed after you do this. You should be changed after this course. You should be changed after this weekly module, right? Yeah, love that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. I love your excitement. You're like, boom.
Well, and just keying off of what she just said about learners being changed, I think it's important that as we go back to our institutions, and I'm in an institution that is very much top down. So, QM is mandated for all online instructors. And while that has some pros and a lot of pros, it doesn't, I found, because I'm new to the campus, I have found faculty engagement is very low, and there's some resistance, a lot of resistance and some resentment. And so the growth isn't happening for the faculty because they don't have that opportunity to reflect on.
Yeah.
On, okay, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? What are the pros? What are the cons? And make that choice.
Yeah.
It's just, you will do this. And so I think in those top-down situations, the adults in the situation, I mean, college students are adults,
Yeah.
but you know,
But
the
for
ones,
faculty.
yeah, the faculty, the instructors, you know, they also lose some opportunity for growth because it's a mandate.
Mhm.
And I think we need to remember that.
Yeah, it's hard to find the value in being told to eat your veggies, right? And
Right.
being told you have to eat a vitamin. So, but having that time for reflection, metacognition about this journey is important and this is why, and giving it that purpose, so critical, right? So thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very, very meaningful. I know we've got a little bit of time.
Yeah, I was just thinking based on her comment, do we want to show where the standards portion
Oh.
is? You were probably thinking. the
She's
same
not a
thing.
plant. She's not just queuing us up.
Right. And also, I mean, while Heather's calling this up, that you can meet standards without being bossy, right? We're not trying to tell people what to do. We're just trying to give starting points and help. And so in this section of the site, which is, it's the third bullet, right?
Yeah, structure
Yeah.
supports quality standards.
Structure, yeah. In that section of this course that you all have access to, we outline the standards that are directly supported by QM that are related to structure, right? So we know that standard 1.2, 1.1, yeah, that is, and there's some videos in here that you can use. And so, but thinking about learning objectives as structure, what are you going to be doing? What can I expect in this lesson? Those are very helpful in terms of structure. And also, how deep am I supposed to go, depending on what verbs you use? That communicates a level of structure for how much time that it will take or how complex it is. Then in the assessment and measurement, you know, how are those organized? And do they understand how they'll be graded and what priority they have in terms of the grading policy and the overall expectations of the course? And then instructional materials is a little more obvious. Are they organized and easy for people to use? But as we had the comment before, do they have all the supports they need to be successful in that? And so it's not just the content of the course, it's other supports that you could add to it. Or if you have students coming in at a wide range of starting points, do you have some remedial information in there that helps them catch up to help them be successful? So there are lots of different structure things you could do with content. And then in the activities and interaction, really the core of that is just making expectations clear. What do I need to do? Where do I need to put it? Do I have all the supports to be successful? And just making sure that those are very clear. Yeah. Yeah. And the technology, what am I supposed to use? Where is it? If you use technology that students aren't used to using, setting up a practice area so they can try it, set it up and fail, not attached to a graded item. And so sandbox, if you will. And then the learner support, we all have it buried in the syllabus somewhere, but when a student needs help, can they actually find it? So thinking about where you place that, and if you do an orientation module that shows them where it is, if you need this, it is here. And then of course, accessibility and usability, we just want them to be able to use everything where all students in the course can use it successfully.
Any questions? I'm so grateful for the excellent conversation and discourse that happened here today. I hope that the people on the other side of the wall weren't too mad, and love that the Zoom participants were able to collaborate in that virtual space. But again, thank you. This has really been probably the best classroom I've had in years. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Right on time.